We continue now at the top of Daf Gimel Amud Aleph in Meseches Bava Metzia. This is Bava Metzia Daf 3a. On the previous summit, the Gemara asked whether our mission is consistent with the view of Sumchus. Sumchus is talking about a situation where an ox gores a cow and we're not sure whether the cow was pregnant at the time it was gored or not. We're essentially not sure whether the owner of the ox is responsible to pay for the offspring of the cow or not. And Sumchus says in that case, Cholkin below Shvua, they divide, that's the value of the fetus that they divide without a Shvua, without any oath. And of course in our Mishnah, it's a case of Shnayim Ochas and Betalis, and we say they divide it with a Shvua. And so the Gemara had suggested maybe our Mishnah is consistent with Sumchus, and the difference is that there's a Drora de Mamona, there's a loss of money in the case of Sumchus that has to do with the offspring of the cow. But the Gemara now says if that's the distinction that you're making, it should go in the exact opposite direction. Because over there, if there's a Drora de Mamona, over there, if there's a loss of money involved, meaning to say if we give it to the wrong individual, the person who rightfully should get the money is going to lose out. And furthermore, V'ikol Amemer Kula Lamar, V'ikol Amemer Kula Lamar, also in that case, you can say it entirely belongs to this one, or it entirely belongs to that one. As Rashi says, V'ikol Amemer Kula Damar, V'od al Karchach, meaning it has to be, O Kula Damar, O Kula Damar, either the value of the fetus, either he owes him for that fetus, or he doesn't owe him. Afilu Hachi Cholkin below Shvua, nevertheless, what does Sumchus say? Sumchus says you divide without taking any oath. Amar Sumchus, Mammon HaMutal B'Safech Cholkin. Sumchus says even in that situation, that if you have money where there's a doubt, you divide it below Shvua, you divide it without an oath. And so therefore over here, when we're talking about Shnayim Ochas and Betalis, the Leka Dror Demona, where there's no loss of money, the Ikol Amemer de Tarvayu, he meaning to say, we could say that they both own the talis if we split it. It's possible that no one is losing out. So lo kol shekain, so then certainly we should say in such a situation that you would divide without a shvua. And so therefore it should be a kal v'chomer that our mission is not consistent with Sumchus. What are you saying that it's different, and therefore maybe it could be Sumchus? And the Gemara answers, Afilu tema Sumchus. You could even say that our mission is Sumchus. Why could it be Sumchus? Because Shvua Zumi D'Rabbanan here. It could be that the oath in our Mishnah is a oath that is taken Midrabbanan. Kid Rabbi Yochanan, like Rabbi Yochanan says. The Yom Rabbi Yochanan says, Shvua Zu Takonis Chachamim. The Shvua in our Mishnah is the Takonis Chachamim. Shalo Yehei Kol Echad V'Yechad Holech V'Tokef V'Taliso Shel Chavero. So that not everyone should just go around and grab the talis of his friend, V'Yomer Shalihu, and say that it is mine. And Rashi explains, Hacha deleka drara de mamon, over here, by the case of the talis, there's no loss of money, meaning to say, again, we're talking here about a metzia, nobody's losing out. V'od, and Rashi again learns it as a v'od. It's not drara de mamona, de'ikol amemer de tarvayu. That's not one thing, it's two separate things. Number one, there's no drara de mamona, and furthermore, de'ikol amemer de tarvayu, b'hadei adadi agbu, it's possible that they both picked it up. So lo kol shekain decholkin below shvua, certainly we should divide it without a shvua. And the Gemara continues, Lema Masnis and Deloka Rabbi Yossi. Let's say that our mission is not consistent with the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. Deika Rabbi Yossi, because it would follow Rabbi Yossi. Ha'amar, but Rabbi Yossi says, Im Kain Ma Hifsid Ramai. He says that if so, what is the Ramai? The person who is cheating, how is he going to lose out? Rather, the entire thing has to be set aside until Eliyahu Navi comes along and clarifies who it belongs to. And Rashi explains the case. The Rabbi Yossi lekaman b'hamafkid. This is a case later on in Perek HaMafkid. Shnayim shefkidu eitzel echad. The case is as follows: two people deposit something by one person. Zem moneh v'zem masayim. One deposits a moneh, and the other one deposits masayim. Meaning one is 100 dinar, and the other one deposits 200 dinar. And Rashi continues, Zeh omer masayim shali v'zeh omer masayim shali. Each one says that the 200 is mine. I was the one that gave the 200, and we don't know which person gave the 100 dinar and which one gave 200 dinar. The Kamar Tanakama, so in that case, the Tanakama says, no sin la zem moneh, v'la zem moneh, each one should get a moneh, because we know at least that each one is entitled to a moneh. V'hashar yehei munach ad sheyavo Eliyahu, and the rest of it you set aside until Eliyahu Navi comes. Amar Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Yossi says to that, Im Kain ma hifsid Ramai, if that's what you're going to paskin, so then the Ramai doesn't lose anything. He might as well claim he gets 200. He'll for sure get 100. He's not going to lose out at all. V'lama Yoda, why should he admit? Hare kibel shalo, he already got what he gave. El hakol yehei munach v'yafsid Ramai. Rather, Rabbi Yossi argues the entire thing is yehei munach, let the Ramai lose out. V'achanami yehei munach. That's what the Gemara is arguing over here as well. Rabbi Yossi is not consistent with our Mishnah by the case of Shnayim Ochas and Betalis also. Wouldn't Rabbi Yossi say yehei munach? Again, that's what the Gemara said. Dika Rabbi Yossi ha'amar im kain ma hifsid Ramai. If the Mishnah was Rabbi Yossi would say, what is the Ramai losing out? Ela hakol yehei munach ad sheyavo Eliyahu. Again, you have to say the entire thing is set aside until Eliyahu Navi comes. And so the Gemara says, Elamai Rabbanan. So rather, what are you going to say? You're going to say that our Mishnah is the Rabbanan. That's not going to work either. Kevan da Amri Rabbanan Hashar Yehemunach Ad Sheyavo Eliyahu, because the Rabbanan also say Yehemunach. They just don't say the entire 300 is Yehemunach. They just say the last 100 is Yehemunach, but they still say Yehemunach. So hanami, so in this case also, kashar dami desveikahi. This is like shar, meaning to say the talis is like the extra money that we're not sure about. It's a suffix, and so therefore they would say yehemunach on the talis as well, just like the Rabbanan say that last 100 that we are mesupik about, that we're in doubt about, we say yehemunach. The entire talis we're in doubt about, we should say yehemunach. It's just as inconsistent with the Rabbanan as it is with Rabbi Yossi. And the Gemara says, "Hi, my, what kind of question is that?" If you say correctly, the Mishnah is the Rabbanan. So Hasam Devada Haimana Dechad Minayuhu. Over there, that last mana certainly belongs to only one of them. It can't be both. So Ami Rabbanan Yehemunach Achiyavo Elio. So that's why the Rabbanan say Yehemunach. But over here, the Tarvayu, where it's possible that the talis belongs to both of them. Ami Rabbanan Pal Gibeshvur, the Rabbanan would say it gets divided with an oath. But the Gemara continues, but if you're going to try to say that our Mishnah is consistent with Rabbi Yossi, in that case, where certainly at least a mana belongs to one party and a mana belongs to the other party, still Rabbi Yossi says that everything has to be set aside until Eliyahu Navi comes. Over here, where it's possible to say that it all belongs to one of them, that's a possibility. Certainly in that case, he would say Yehemunach. And the Gemara says not necessarily afilu teim Rabbi Yossi. You could even say that our Mishnah is consistent with Rabbi Yossi. Hasam over there, vada ikaramai. For sure, somebody is a cheater, somebody is lying. But over here, mi yemar de ikaramai. Who says that there's really a cheater? Maybe not. Ema tarvayu, b'hadei adadi agbu. It's possible that they both picked it up at the same time, and maybe Rabbi Yossi would agree with the ruling in our Mishnah that we divided with the shvua. Inami, or you could say hasam kanis leila Rabbi Yossi l'ramai. Over there, by the case of the manas, or Rabbi Yossi wants to impose a fine on the ramai. In order that he should admit. But over here, might say the islay delodi. What loss is there for him that he's going to admit? Meaning to say, there's no reason for him to admit. If we say yehemunach, it's a lost object that was found. He's not losing anything anyway. It wouldn't make sense to impose a fine in that situation. But the Gemara still says Teinach Metzia. Well, that's a good answer, meaning that second answer that you're giving about imposing a fine to get someone to admit, that makes sense by a lost object which is found. So then you're going to say there's no reason the person's going to admit. But Mekach Umemkar Mikol Amemar, let's say you're talking about a purchase, so there already the person might want to admit in such a situation. What are you going to say in that case? May rather go back to what we answered the first answer, meaning to say again, Rabbi Yossi would make a distinction and say if there's a vaday aramai, then we say yehemunach. That's not the case in this situation. And Rashi explains, Mekach umemkar meikol amemra. What are you going to say in the Mekach umemkar case? Hokimna de kibel dam mitarvayu. Again, we said earlier that the seller actually got money from both of them. V'hav amrin yehei atalis v'adam emunachim. And if we did say yehemunach there, islay psei del ramai, the cheater actually would lose out. V'yoda alo emes, and therefore he'll admit to what really happened. Kodem sheyavsid, before he's going to lose out, and so therefore you can't give that answer if you're going to go by the case of Mekach umemkar. So the Gemara goes back to the first answer. And the Gemara continues, Bein l'Rabbanan uvein l'Rabbi Yossi, whether according to the Rabbanan or Rabbi Yossi in the case of Yehemunach above, Hasam gabe chenvani al pinkaso, there by the case of the storekeeper with his ledger. Again, the case over there is that they are both claiming from the balabayas. Both the chenvani is claiming he's owed by the balabayas, and the worker is claiming he's owed by the balabayas. Tekotani zen nishba v'notel, v'zen nishba v'notel. It says this one takes an oath and he collects from the balabayas, and the other one also takes an oath and collects from the balabayas. Again, the case over there is that the balabayas goes over to the chenvani and he says, give to my worker that which he is owed, and then I'll pay you back. The chenvani says he did that, so he's owed money from the balabayas, and the worker says he never received anything, so he's also owed money from the balabayas. And so the Gemara asks, Ma'ishna delo amrina nafke lemamona mi balabayas. What's the difference that over there we should say the same thing? We should say, let's take the money from the balabayas, v'yehemunach hashiyavo elio, and then say yehemunach, because we don't know who it should go to. Does it go to the storekeeper or the worker? Da bevada ikarame, because over there certainly somebody is lying. Somebody's saying they didn't get the money when they really did. And the Gemara says to that, Amri, they say, Hasam hainu time. Over there the reason is as follows. The Amr lechenvani la balabayas, because the storekeeper says to the balabayas, Anosh lichusa didach kavdina. I did the shlichus. I did what you asked me to do. Ma'is ligabe sacher. What do I have to do with the sacher? I have nothing to do with that hired worker. Afagav dekam eshtabel. Even if he takes an oath to me, lo mehem li b'shvua. He's not somebody that I believe with a shvua. Atem mante. You're the one that trusted him. To lo amrit li b'sahadi havli, because you didn't say that it should be given over with witnesses. And since you didn't tell me to give it over with witnesses, you essentially trusted him, but I never trusted him. V'socher nami, and the same thing with the worker. Amar le balabais. He says to the balabais, "Ano avdi avidita gabach. I did work by you. Ma yisli gabi chenvani. What do I have to do with the storekeeper? Afa gav the mishtabel. Even if he takes a shvua to me, lo mehemenli. I don't trust him. He's not trustworthy to me. Hilkach tarvayu mishtabi. That's why, therefore, in that case, they both take a shvua. V'shakli mi balabais, and they can collect from the balabais." And Rashi explains, Hasam hainu taima d'shneim nishboin v'nolin. Over there, the reason why they both take an oath and collect, the chenvani omer lebalabais, because the storekeeper says to the balabais, Anashli chusididach avdi. I did what you told me to. V'nasati lepolech mamon shatziv yisani. I gave your worker money. That's what you told me to do, is to give the money to the worker. Ma'is ligabe socher la'ara. What do I have to do with the hired worker in terms of this protest? Lo mehemenli eini ma'amino b'shua. I don't trust that worker when he takes an oath. Ani omer shu rasha. I say he's wicked. Ve'enli lahamin adam b'shua al karchi. You can't make it that I have to believe someone else's shvu against my will. Unless originally there was some kind of deal where they trusted each other to deposit something by him or to make some kind of condition, but I have nothing to do with the worker, so he doesn't take a shvu to me. You're the one that trusted him. You're the one that really messed up. I shouldn't have to pay. I shouldn't lose out because you messed up by trusting this guy. That now my money has to be set aside until Eliyahu Navi comes, and so therefore each one essentially can make this claim to the Balabayas, and that's why they can both take a shvua and collect. And the Gemara continues with the two dots. Tani Rabbi Chia taught, Manali biyadcha, a person says, a man of mine is in your possession, meaning you owe me 100 dinar. V'alo omer ein lach biyadi klum, and the other one says, I don't have anything of yours in my possession, I don't owe you anything. V'aidim mi'idim oso sheyesh lo chamishim zuz, but then the witnesses testify that he does owe him 50 zuz out of the 100. So no sin lo chamishim zuz, he gives him 50 zuz, v'yishava al ashar, and the rest he has to take a shvua, on the rest he takes a shvua, shalote hodoas piv, gedola mehadoas Asedim, because his admission should not be greater than when witnesses testify. If he would have admitted to part of it, that's what we call a modem mixas, and he takes a shvua, and so therefore by Edom as well, he's going to take a shvua. That is mikal v'chomer, that we learn from a kal v'chomer. The Gemara will explain later what the kal v'chomer is. And the Gemara continues, Vitana Tuna, that the Tana of our Mishnah supports this as well. Shnayim ochzim betalas zomarnim mitzasiyah v'chulu. Again, that's the case of two people holding a talis, where they each take a shvua and they each take half. And so the Gemara says, V'hacha, but over here, Kevon the tafis, since the person is holding it, anon sahadi, so we are like witnesses. That's the idea of hadu asedim. We are like witnesses to my the tafis haidi deu, that what this person is holding is his, umay the tafis haidi deu, and what the other person is holding is his. V'katani yishav, and it says that he takes a shvua. That's similar to what we just said above, that there's a shvua by hadoas edim. And the Gemara says, what does it mean when it says that his admission should not be greater than edim from a kal v'chomer? That means as follows. Shalotomar hadoas piv, you shouldn't say that when he admits, Hu deram yerachman shvuah, that's when the Torah says there's a shvuah. Maybe only by admission. Kid Rabba, it's like what Rabba said. Diyama Rabba, because Rabba said, Mifnei ma'amra Torah moda mixas hatayni yishava. What's the reason that the Torah says that a moda b'mixas takes a shvuah? Why is it that if a person admits partially it takes a shvuah? The reason is chazaka. The reason is that there is a presumption that ein adamei is pana b'fnei bal chova, that a person is not going to be so brazen in front of his creditor, somebody that he owes money. He's not really going to want to deny something that when he really owes it. Really, he does want to deny everything. The reason why he's not denying everything is because a person, again, is not so brazen. And Rashi explains, he takes a shvu, he takes an oath on the rest. Here you have Edom testifying that he owes half of it. It's the same as modem and mixas, where you take a shvu. We learn that from the pasuk of ki huzeh, that teaches us that modem and mixas takes a shvu. Now, even though this person did not admit to part of it, Hariyesh Edim and mixas, but there's witnesses that testify about part of it. Velote hodas piv gadol l'chayiv al ashar. We shouldn't say that admission is greater, that makes him chayiv shvua, that he has to take a shvua on the rest of it. Mehadoas Edim, from when you have Edim. Mikal v'chomer, that we understand from a kal v'chomer. L'kamon mefarish my kal v'chomer. The Gemara later on will explain what the kal v'chomer is. V'tana tuna v'tana didon siyata l'didi. The point is that the tan of our Mishnah is a support for what I'm saying. The Mishnah said za'omer v'chulu v'katani shneim yishbu. Again, in our Mishnah it says each one says the whole thing is mine, and they both take a shvua. Anon sahadi demad tafis hai hainu palga, meaning what each one is holding, we are witnesses it is his. Each one has half. Dideyu, that belongs to him. Sharei muchsaku b'fanenu, because he has possession right in front of us. V'areu tovei askula, now he's claiming all of it. V'chaveiro kofer askula, and the other one is denying all of it. She'omer kula shali, everyone's saying Kula Shali. V'af Mashat Tafas B'yadcha, even the part that you're holding is actually mine. That's what each one is claiming. And so where are the witnesses here? We're the witnesses. V'anu Me'idin, so we are like witnesses, Sheyesh Lo B'mixas, that he has part of it. U'machayvim es chaveru shvuah lashar, we make the friend take the oath on the rest of it. The Hainu Chatzi, She'ikev li'atzmo, meaning the half that he held for himself, he has to take a shvuah on that. And so therefore that's why our Mishnah is a support for what we are saying here. And then the Gemara said, "My lotei hodoas piv gedola mehadoas edim." What does it mean when it says that his admission should not be greater than with edim? Mehechi teisilon lemeidak, the taste like a daitin to tei hodoas piv gedola mehadoas edim. Meaning, why would we even think that admission should be more than edim in terms of requiring a shvuah? The itzrich tana lemeiluf mikal v'chomer, that the tana has to then learn from a kal v'chomer the other direction to lotei hodoas piv gedola, that the admission is not greater. And the reason for that is mimnei ma amra Torah. What's the reason why the Torah says a moda b'mixas, that he takes a shvuah v'lo chashvu kameshav aveda? We don't consider him like somebody just returning a lost object. He's admitting to something that he didn't have to admit to. Why don't we consider him like that? Lepatra shelo kafar b'kula. We should say he's exempt because he didn't deny all of it. Maybe it's a good thing, so to speak, that he admitted to part of it, but we don't say that. We say that he has to take a shvuah, and again, as the Gemara said, that has to do with the fact that a person is not so brazen to deny everything. We will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Gimel Amud Beis.